Hello, everyone. Simulation Talk 248. And yes, today we're a little bit, there's some technical difficulties. So that created a bit of a hiatus. And when I came on, it was supposed to be way later, and then it became way earlier. And then Ben Stewart, my good friend Ben Stewart, is going to be joining us very shortly. I'm very excited about this. How are you, everyone? Kay and Chris and Ebony and Guru, everybody are in good spirits, I hope. How are you, everyone? Jessica is in the house. Welcome, 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 everybody. Slowly trickling in from TikTok. Isaac and Michael and Cloud, Big Viper. All right. Yoni's in the house. Indeed, it does feel like family. How are you guys? Good to see you, Chris. Awesome. Yeah, so we will have a beautiful conversation in a moment with Ben Joseph Stewart, good friend of mine, who is an incredible filmmaker, and he recently launched his own film school, but also he is responsible for some fun things that you guys are going to discover in a moment. I don't want to spoil the surprise. I'll give you a hint. He's also the one that edited and created The Empty Quest, the movie, and I believe he also edited the In the Dark documentary with Marcus Aubrey. But he'll tell us all about this, and we're going to be discussing some fun things, including the power of story and what it actually entails for humans. And I'm excited about this conversation, so I hope you guys are too. Jackie's saying, Dan, I was on Reddit and I saw people talking about sea snake like tubes, and they're convinced we're in a simulation, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, where did they see the sea snake like tubes? Where did they see that? Because I definitely know what they're talking about. What's up, NAA? Thohawk. T-Dog. What a great handle. Back to the 90s. Yes, baby. Opa. Come on. There we go. Carmelo. How you doing, my brother? Guru's in the house. Miller. How are you? How are you? By the way, if you guys want to follow on Twitch and help the channel grow, please do. It will be LaserX83 on Twitch. LaserX83 on Twitch. And our website is codeofreality.com if you want to see any new developments. Finally working on a new version of it. Oh, why is it hello, Ebony? Thank you for joining from Twitch. Let's go here. Thank you so much, Guru. You beat me to the punch. Thank you so much. Let's see how we did last night. Last night, I'm not sure we did so well, but let's see. Woohoo! 9 viewers. Beautiful. Yeah, we're doing pretty well. So I think we'll get there very soon. I don't know. I think it's like 20 days out of the month that needs to be 3 people on average. I think we're going to get there quickly. I haven't streamed in a few days this month just because of shooting again, but hopefully these days are going to be very few and far in between. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining from Twitch. I appreciate you, and I hope more people will join. Welcome, everybody who's slowly coming in on TikTok as well. Welcome, Simulation Talk 248. The channel usually revolves around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny. I'm claiming that I found proof that we live in a simulation. We've been here on the daily, well, semi-daily at this point, but pretty often. And we discuss simulation and other fun things like science, religion, spirituality, philosophy, God, whatever comes to mind. I'm going to do something about these lights, guys. I promise. I'm going to do a whole setup very soon. I ordered a mic. I'm going to sound a lot better. I'm going to probably connect everything through the OBS. And it's going to be much higher quality. So I appreciate everyone who were patient with me while restructuring, and you know, the content is not of the highest quality in terms of the way it looks. So all of that is coming, and it's going to look much better. And I am deeply humbled and moved by the fact that so many people still show up on a daily basis just for the quality of the conversation. How are you, Rose? Good to see you. Good to have you with us. Thank you for the likes. Thank you, Kay. And yes, thank you for the reminder, Chris. If you guys want to check out our Discord community, it's a lovely, lovely community. Come join it. You can find the links both on TikTok, in my link tree, and on YouTube. In the where all the social media links are. I believe it's the third link from the top. Should be able to see it. Okay, so until Ben comes and joins us, let's see what we can tackle. Ordered new parts for my laser. I'm going to get it right this time. Yes, and I saw your drawings, by the way, Guru. It looks great. It looks like my first experiments, honestly, which is amazing. Makes me proud. It's fun to watch. Thank you, Rose. James. Evil Icon is in the house. Thank you so much for the gifts. Alberto. What else can we announce? Let me see. What else we got to do here? By the way, the scratching on the pad, is that okay or not great? Which one is it? Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Boom. Oh, Ben said he's ready. Oh, you can, feel free to come on, brother. You can just unmute. I would just
right on, man. I'm here.
Awesome. Can everybody hear Ben? I think they can. We're just making sure.
1 1 2 2.
Oh yeah, great mic. What mic are you using? I just ordered one just to have a better quality. Are you using a Shure?
This is actually This is my laptop mic. I'm traveling. I'm in Austin, and I only brought enough stuff to edit that I didn't bring a microphone. So I'm glad it sounds good.
It sounds amazing. It probably sounds a lot better than mine for some reason. I don't know. Which laptop are you using?
I got it's the latest MacBook Pro.
Oh, mine is too. So I don't know what's going on, man. Well, in any case, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, dude, it's an absolute honor and a pleasure. And I was telling people a little bit what you're about and what you do. You want to give us, so what we covered is that you're a filmmaker, is that you were behind some seminal pieces that a lot of people, especially of this channel that listen to my channel, would recognize, like The Empty Quest. And what is the movie with Into the Dark called? Or with
it's called Awake in the Darkness with Aubrey Marcus.
Aubrey Marcus, yeah. So that was you. And I didn't want to give too much information because I actually wanted you to fill in that gap. You want to give us a 30-second to a minute synopsis of who you are and why you're so amazing? not to put you on the spot at all.
That tripped me up. All right, so 30 seconds. So my name is Ben Stewart. You can find me at benjosephstewart.com. I also just launched a film course. It's an academy where there's also an online community where I'm empowering storytellers to step up and really voice what it is that's in their soul and in their heart. Because I believe it's not just a good pastime; it matters for us to be a part of the story that's being written now. We can get more into the weeds there, but if you want to check that out, souloffilm.com. And
Soul,
yeah, I
SOL,
mean, like,
or Soul as
yeah,
in SOUL.
SOUL.
Okay.
So instead of, like, the scaling or the profitability or the industry of filmmaking, it's all about the soul of filmmaking to me, because priority number one isn't getting into the industry and competing and worried about the formula. It's really about following your own path into filmmaking, because I kind of dropped in through the back door of filmmaking. I didn't follow any sanctioned channels. And I think that's what makes me kind of liberated to do what I do. Now, when people hire me, they're not like, "Hey, Ben, conform to what I want you to do." They're like, "Ben, make a Ben Stewart film. Like, I've seen your films. I like it. Here's some money. I don't want to put a word in your mouth. I just want to see you create." So that's what, like, Tim Pool, John Chavez, Aubrey Marcus, Pete Evans, various other funders have done, as well as Gaia. And I think that's because I kind of made a splash back in 2008 and 2009 with my first two films. Um, Admittedly, I wasn't, like, at the top of my game back then. I had just started. I didn't have a mentor. I think it was right message, right time. It was before YouTube. It was Google videos. And I wanted to make the first conspiracy documentary with a twist ending about how we are more powerful than any of the exterior issues, and less because I like conspiracy and more because I like twist ending movies. So I that just kind of set a tone for the kinds of film that I make. And then I went to Gaia, made Psychedelica, 2 seasons of it. I did a direct to camera show on Gaia called Limitless, about human potential. And I talked a little bit about John Chavez's work about endogenous DMT. That's how he found me. And yeah, man, it's just been an incredible road of
Well,
not just self-discovery.
you can tell people what movies you put out first, even if it wasn't the height of your game the way you consider it. But what were the first films that you created? You can tell people.
Okay, so the very first one in 2008 was called Esoteric Agenda. You can still find that on YouTube, and it's also up on Gaia. The next one was called Kymatica, which was a lot more about taking personal accountability for those things that we project onto scapegoats, groups of people, or just the exterior world in general. That one was my biggest splash. It won the New York Independent Film Festival of 2009. Then I made a film called Ungrip. It kind of flew under the radar, but that was about a man that up in Canada, he became sovereign. He relinquished all of his, documents. That was called Ungrip. And those are, like, the first three films that I made over the course of 4 years. And then I just kind of, like, went off into the wilderness with my now wife, road tripping. Never thought I would ever make a film again until Gaia picked me up in 2017 and paid me a salary. I almost threw up in my mouth when they told me what they were willing to pay me, because I was like, wait a minute, you know the kinds of films I make, right? Like, I intentionally buck the system. I don't go with the formula. And they were like, yes, please come create. So that got me back into filmmaking. When I left there, Pete Evans, he's a celebrity chef out of Australia. He picked me up to make a film about cannabis and hemp. It was called The Magic Plant. Then John Chavez said, dude, I procured a little bit of money. You want to make a film called DMT Quest? So we did. And dude, that one really blew up. He just put it on YouTube. Joe Rogan shouted it out, Dennis McKenna, Alex Gray, Beckley Institute. I could go on. And that got me and him on Aubrey Marcus's radar. And that was when Aubrey was like, yo, I filmed with my camera phone. I just filmed me going to Germany, going into a darkroom retreat, and then recorded 4 hours of audio in the darkroom. Can you turn this into a movie? And to me, my first intuition is like, that's not nearly enough to make a film. And then so my obvious answer was, sure, let's see how we can do this, because I like the challenge. That made it so where he was like, dude, can I just pick you up full time? Can we just do salary? And I said, yes. In the time in between that film and him picking me up salary, I made a film with Tim Pool called Game of Money. And it's about how money has gone from seashells and feathers all the way to digital currencies today and where it might go in the future. I made 2 films with Aubrey in the time that I was salary, and that was Unsafe and Ineffective. And it was about basically everything post 2020 and how stories reign supreme. And so I kind of like buck some of the official narratives around the post 2020 world. And then from there, we made it. I didn't really want to do this because I never ever wanted to make a film about a political candidate running for office, but Aubrey Marcus was really into RFK, and he said, "Ben, I really want you to make a film about RFK." And I said, "Listen, I'm not going to narrate it. I may not even put my name on it, but I'll start building it for you if you want to take it over at some point." So I built it, and I had 3 months to make that film, and then all of a sudden RFK steps down and leaves the Independent Party and endorses Trump. And Aubrey was kind of deflated at that point, and I was like, "Listen, now I'm ready to make the film the way I would make it, because I basically want to empower people at home, not to necessarily look at a candidate." So what I did in that one was the two parties, but really the direction that they both head seems too. There's too much unity in the direction that we're heading for it to be two different choices to me. So RFK was the hero all the way up until the end of Act Two, and then when he stepped down, I basically said, "I'm not showing him once more in all of Act Three. The new hero actually is the audience member at home that realizes we never needed the man. It was the idea all along. And the idea is that there are more people, and this is factually backed up, there are more people that wish for there to be a third party or an independent party beyond the two parties. And there are more of them than there are in the Democratic or Republican parties. So I was able to make another twist ending film, and that was the last full film that I made. I'm in production with John Chavez to make DMT Quest 2 now. And I also have 3 or 4 other projects that are on my plate. So it's been a wild ride, and I'm super humbled and blessed to make films that I want to make and not have to make cake videos for a living.
Well, first of all, let me just say, whenever I hear your outline of what you do on a regular basis, it makes me extra proud of calling you a friend. But also, I mean, the caliber of the importance of the work that you're usually doing and the emphasis you put on things. Before I continue, when Ben is speaking, when you guys are listening to him, do you hear any kind of a disturbance? Is there any kind of a thing jumping, or everything sounds great? I'll wait for your response, and meanwhile, I'll keep talking. One of the things that I really love about our relationship, yours and mine, is that we coming in the world slightly differently, but we always align with the kinds of attitudes that people should carry into different kinds of conversations that eventually outline what the general narrative is between people. Because essentially, what we tell ourselves as a society is an averaged version of what, in fact, each person says individually. And the louder we all speak, the sharper the edges that need to combine together to make the holistic together story. And it seems that because the world has been largely based on competition, which I think it's fine. It's the natural course of what nature does, right? But we now finding a new modality, which is we trying to glide into a slightly different kind of way of operating in the world. So even though we have our own natural intuitions, predispensations, life's experiences, there seems to be a way to weave a new kind of story that leaves room within itself to fold other perspectives without compromising on your own. And this is something that I think you do masterfully. There's a conversation between me and Ben on my channel as well. You guys can check it out, Ben Joseph Stewart, on my channel. If you just scroll down, you'll find it, no problem. And one of the things that we go into in a few instances where we kind of find these points where you and I don't necessarily see it the same way, but the conversation still very much glides, and it is of a very progressive and aimed at coming at an understanding and a solution kind of conversation versus a competition of ideas. And this is something you do really well. Your channel, I know that you switch every here and there about the kinds of topics you touch on, and you've been touching on conspiracy quite a bit. And I even asked you one time, I said, why do you focus so much on conspiracy? And you said, well, actually, I don't really focus on conspiracy. I focus more on putting the light and the right kinds of questions that I believe we should be able to ask. And I'm in full agreement with that. And I think that's the healthiest way to approach any subject. Now, all of that being said, there are components of the way that the more kind of like where the rubber touches the road elements of society, you know, like the things that we believe really move the dial, like politics and the things that we want to see in our country or not see in our country, and our involvement in different things. It does gain a new kind of flavor just because of the amount of emotional investment that a lot of people have. So I kind of learned to separate between this outlook that people have towards the infinite and maybe unbounded future in which we are spiritually evolving and we understanding ourselves as a collective, as a humanity, and then how that then goes down the channels and translates to the actionable things that we then call, you know, our political opinions, our ideas about how you should, you know, do anything in life, raise your children, all that stuff, like the morals and the ethical scruples that people in society hold, different societies hold. And I'm really interested in this intersection, in this transition stage between one and the other, between what we call the spiritual awakening or spiritual growth, to then the things that you would hear more Tim Pool talk about, right? Like this and this, right? Even though I know he also draws a lot from his religious convictions, and maybe it's fighting more in the background. And I'm not necessarily putting Tim Pool as a point of conversation, but he's a good example of where it kind of starts becoming more of the political thing versus, let's say, Charles Eisenstein, who focuses a lot more on the spiritual growth part of it, and he speaks from there. Considering this very wide map, where do you see yourself more? I kind of see you like an intersection in the middle. Is that kind of the vision that you have of yourself, or you see yourself in a different way?
Yeah, no, I think you put it in good terms. You know, for me, I've always liked coming from a more artistic, and I feel like that's slightly more philosophical frame. And what I do is when I see that people are stuck in a worldview, it doesn't matter if I have to come more from the practical or more from the metaphysical. I do what I can to impose questions. I try to do it with questions more than statements of, you know, seeming absolute fact. But I try to pose questions that add in a little bit of doubt to somebody's I wouldn't say closed-minded ideas, but, you know, incomplete ideas. I believe some people, when they say, you know, like blah blah blah, here's a statement I believe about the world, and there is no other way to look at it. I always say, of course, there's another way to look at it, and let me give you three different ones that actually hold just as much logical weight. And when we're not talking about like what are the facts, we're talking about the logic that we can put behind probabilities of the way that the world works. So, you know, before I get into a bunch of word salads, I think I look at the world like an artist. The reason why I talk about conspiracy is not because I actually think people should believe my beliefs. I mean, I have some wacky beliefs, you know, some of it is about, you know, global agendas. Some of it is about how, you know, words and thoughts and frames of mind you know, box us in and shape our behavior without our knowledge, you know. So I think the biggest conspiracy are the stories that we allow ourselves to confine our behavior with. Um, so in that respect, it's really, I guess, a little bit more of a trickster. I'm not trying to get people to believe anything in particular other than we are more powerful than the things in the outside world that we're afraid of. But the way that I do that is not by just making soft, like The Secret kind of films. I feel like, you know, cracking open your worldview and making you take a look at certain things that I've looked at that are like, look, when you look at the world, the power structures and the way authority works, it's not the way that most people who watch the news and have a conventional view of reality. I don't believe it operates that way. I think the biggest important thing is not going from, let's say, if it were to be, is it round Earth or is it flat Earth? I'm like, it's not about hopping from one model to another. It's about being able to, no matter what the question is, dig deep down into the nuances and find probabilities, not some like absolute fact. So the trickster element in me, the artist in me, likes to pose questions that cause people to doubt their very, walled garden worldview. If that makes any sense. Like,
It does.
I
It does
love
make perfect sense.
conspiracy,
Yeah.
but it's not like, it's like I love ayahuasca. I love ayahuasca, but I don't love being on ayahuasca. I love the insights that I can derive from the ordeal that I have to go through. It's the same with conspiracy. I don't love thinking about those things. I don't even really love talking about them because of what it does to most people that listen. But I think I've found my niche following that understand that I'm not trying to scare the shit out of people. I'm trying to show that, listen, the world seems to be different than your closed concept. If you can crack that open, then you can see more. If you can see more, then you can maybe develop clarity. If you can develop clarity, then I think that your path forward is going to make more sense. You're not going to question yourself. But if you don't have enough clarity because you're not asking integral questions, then I think a lot of people are just going to be making ill-informed guesses at how they should behave, how they should save, how they should protect themselves, how they, what they really want out of life. And so in a way, I'm trying to crack people open spiritually and psychologically rather than make them believe the things that I talk about.
Yeah, and this is something that kind of goes back to the conversation you and I have, an ongoing conversation you and I have about modalities and what they are for. And now, the more that you're talking, even though you told me this before, something clicked. Because the first impulse that I have to say back to that, and it's not necessarily to negate it, it's just to kind of add to the dialogue, which is that I agree that there are probabilities. However, when probabilities go over a certain threshold, they do hold a functional value. So, for example, it's true that the probability that I'm not going to find the floor, the next step I'm going to take because of some quantum states that might, once in infinity make me go through the floor, they exist, but they don't exist in any relevant sense to me, right? So in that sense, and we are playing with, to some degree, with some vague concepts because we are playing with probabilities that are not that extreme. So like usually, because you're talking more about people's perception of the political landscape or people's ideas about the world, or if they want to argue about the shape of the earth. And this is, for example, where I would kind of like start drawing the line and say, well, actually, there are certain subjects where the chances that the earth is flat, they are low enough in terms of everything we can understand and know about the world, to not consider that as any serious proposition. But what I'm identifying, the more you talk to me, is that it's not necessary. Because what I would say, for example, is like, well, what is the applicability of that probability, right? So if you're going to be flying a plane, you better make sure that you understand what the shape of the earth is, right? Or if you're designing a plane. But I think what you're alluding to, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is that from the perspective of an artist and of a filmmaker, you don't see it as your job to necessarily tease out whether these truth claims are true or not. What you're trying to encourage is more of the play in that arena. So people get to explore these possibilities for themselves. And if they do land on the probabilities that make sense to them, as long as they're applicable to something that actually does good in the world, you encourage more of that. And that's what I'm. Before it was a little vague to me as to why you don't see this line where there are these truths or statements about the world that are so orthogonal to what in fact is going on, then it's almost like a waste of energy and time to even participate in that. But again, I am identifying the difference here between the thinking about it more like an engineer or thinking about it more like an artist that wants to encourage new states of understanding that as the big picture will lead to more interesting humans that will also create more interesting. Would that be a fair kind of like summation of the slight differences in our perception?
Yeah, and what I would say is like, I maybe gave the wrong example when I was saying flat Earth, round Earth. That's something that there's a lot of debate around. I think the world is square, personally.
We know on
But
this channel, we know it's a sausage, by the way, just so you know.
right, it's
NASA already
absolutely a
declared
donut.
it's
It's
a
a sausage wrapped in on itself.
Yes.
So the thing that I feel is, I absolutely agree. There are certain things where it's just like, I know when I'm walking through a door that if I don't open it up, I'm not General Stubbenbein, or I am. I'll just walk straight into it. There's that famous story of General Stubbenbein thinking that if he believed enough that the wall, or that he could dematerialize, he could just walk through a wall, and he just walks directly into it.
This was for me. They illustrated this in the Man Who Stared at Goats, right?
Men Who Scared Goats,
and then I discovered this is a real thing. I think it was in the holographic universe too. They mentioned this.
Yeah, and what's funny is, the wife of General Stubbenbein is Rima A. LeBeau, who I featured a little bit in my very first film, Esoteric Agenda. But to stay on point, I agree with you and what you say there. And so to clarify what it is I'm doing is not to make people question everything. It's when people are locked inside absolute conviction of things that I feel like it doesn't even benefit them to have conviction about that. I feel like it'll benefit people to be able to, no matter what, and I'm not saying like, question the little things like, are these stairs really here, or is this just a hologram? I'm talking about, if you take the average person, if you get them to question things a little bit more critically, they're going to start with the things that are, a little bit safer, and they're not going to break it down to the fabric of reality, into those very low probability things. They're going to break it down into, am I being too stupid just going all in on Bitcoin? Or, am I limiting myself by, being so scared of starting the business I always wanted to, that I'm just going to be a cook forever, and I'm not going to actually try to do what I really want because I've just convinced myself, and my parents told me that like money is hard to make, it's only for certain people, we'll never get there. It's those things. So there's a smaller band of things that I like people to think about. And to be honest, like the round earth, flat earth thing, I don't even really talk about that. I talk about like, okay, the UN Agenda 2030 goals, they have a potentiality of expanding destroyed infrastructure under whatever guise into smart city. And then the very next thing that I've been calling out since 2008 is, this is not something that the UN denies. They're saying we have these sustainability goals, and I'm saying there's something deeper beneath them, this altruistic vision of having sustainability goals that also garners them power. We should question why that is, and there should be an open debate about those things. We shouldn't be openly debating about whether these stairs are really here, or things that matter less to our immediate reality. So that's kind of that's the territory I play in. I'm not trying to get people to, oh, I'm convinced that these stairs exist. Well, are you sure, bro? Because sometimes, testimony from witnesses 7 times out of 10 is wrong, or filled with fallacy. It's not about those little, I would think, less meaningful things. It's when I help install a pattern of, okay, before you just have absolute conviction that you know what you're doing when you're about to go all in on Bitcoin, or, just completely give up on your dreams, or think that just because you saw a 3-minute YouTube video on UN Agenda 2030, that you know everything it's about. It's those things that I feel are a lot more meaningful. And those are the topics that I have people starting to question a little bit more. And it's not always because I want people to believe where I'm going with it. So in a lot of my podcasting, I say, you should also question my logic. But what I'm trying to do is not install a worldview. It's to install an operating system inside you that allows you to strengthen your conviction, because you know that you challenged it. You tried to poke holes in it. You've learned the integrity of the mental model that you're operating under, and you're allowing for an adaptability gene inside of it. So to me, I think it's strengthening the human being that has the ability to intuit, has the ability to critically think. It's strengthening that aspect of being human rather than saying, guys, we need to get to the bottom of what shape the earth is, what the UN is doing, all these things. I think that's, you could go to infinity and go bonkers trying to figure all those specific things out. If you square your inner person, and if you square your ability to think critically about anything, you're still probably going to land on the thing that makes the most sense to you. And it probably still has a lot of social value. Like things that when I'm thinking through some of these things, I end up coming to a conclusion that many other people have already come to because they're deeper thinkers or they thought of it first. So I'm not saying we should go out and abstract into infinity. It's just we should add a little bit more of that adaptability gene to our worldview than how concrete most our minds are.
Interesting. So yeah, so it's about where I'm seeing it, and I think that expressing that with enough of a tangibility, like how that actually translates to a day to day, I think that's an important one, because now you're engaged in directly teaching people how to make films, and from A to Z basically. And I'm sure that a big portion of it is how do you think about the story that you're trying to tell, because the skills that are required to actually make a film, the technical skills, they're one part of the art, but the biggest part of the art, the heart of it, is understanding what you're actually saying. What are you trying to say? In what way are you saying it? Do you understand how it's going to influence people and how it's going to make the wind blow? And do you feel that now that you engage with that more directly, it creates a new kind of an understanding for you as well? And if so, what is that understanding that you maybe didn't consider that much before?
Yeah, well, I had this epiphany not long ago, maybe a few years ago, that I was like, I don't know if I just want to make films until I die. I want to expand into something new, and teaching what I've learned in an accelerated fashion to people, not just story, but the craft of filmmaking. I think is a very valuable art. Let me give you my top level philosophy on this. I do believe, like Charles Eisenstein and Daniel Schmachtenberger and Mark Gaffney and many people, also, I think this is known by all nations, all the way back to the priesthoods behind the kings in the days of old. Story is one of the most, if not the most powerful technology that humans have naturally available to us. Because I think what story is, and I'm not talking about stories, with a lowercase s, I'm talking about the category of story. And story in general, I believe, is how we discern meaning from reality. We don't think in terms of just numbers and equations, we think in terms of story. So even when we are looking at raw data, for us to gather an understanding of it, we need to bring some context to it, and we extrapolate meaning through the technology of story. So story isn't just something that I can start talking and I'll tell a story and it's either good or not. I think story is actually it's a gate that allows for information to filter itself down into a physical vessel like a human body, and we embody the most important architectural columns of the infrastructure of story is principles and values. So I believe that we are a walking constellation of story or of principles and values. And there are certain principles I will not break. I have a code. There's values, things that I gravitate towards, and I have a story about who I am, and it becomes more clear as I stand for what I value. I stand for my principles. And then, so if you and I, us talking, we communicate through stories as well. Thousands of years ago, by a fire, stories about hunting that bear, or about the Great Flood or something like that. These are ways to basically continue the transmission of culture down through the ages. and it happens by story. And then we started externalizing story outside of the oral traditions, which if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, if you look at, in the Hawaiian culture, uh, if you wanted to marry into a different part of, a different tribe within the Hawaiian culture, you would have to recite your lineage in song form. And if your voice even cracked, that was tantamount to losing the opportunity to marry that person. So it was very much so, even the Aboriginals, they had songs that would help them navigate the desert for days and find a watering hole that you couldn't see from more than 20 meters away. And the song was what would help them find these watering holes. Sometimes they would use a stick to count how many verses they were on. But that then gave way to descending the stories from our minds, not out through our voice box, but into written word. And it became more granular as we went from symbols to letters. And the ideas that we were able to get across in writing started to become a little bit more malleable because we had granular language. And then it wasn't good enough to just have it on cave walls because you can't show grandma, 3 mountains away. So then it went to clay tablets. It's like a portable cave wall, but you drop that thing once and you realize, fuck, I wish I would have put this on papyrus or something that doesn't break when I drop it. So this is an externalized, it's distributive cognition. It's outside of the head. You can put the ideas onto papyrus and transport them. And then you have the printing press, and now you have the cloud. Now you have large language models. And these are the granular bits that feed us information, and then we draw meaning from it within the context of our story. So the reason why I took you and the audience through that like long circuitous journey is story is the most powerful technology to transform culture, to transmute old, worn out thought patterns and perspectives. And a film is an immersive experience of story, so it can touch more centers within the human. I had people when I made my first few films that were like, dude, within an hour and a half, you completely changed the way I see reality and I can't unsee it now. And I didn't understand that power.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, I made the film, but I didn't understand it. And I was like, shit, that's incredible that in the course of 1.5 hours, people can't see the world the same way. That's not just me. That is the craft of filmmaking. And I found that to be such a powerful tool that I was like, there's 2 things I'm going to bring to this: humility and boldness. If there's humility without boldness, then it's kind of soft, amenable. It's trying not to ruffle feathers and always be nice. If it's bold without humility, it can come across as arrogant. So boldness and humility wrapped in story through the medium of film is an immersive experience that simulates a reality for people for an hour and a half to 2 hours and can completely transform their worldview. I engage with that and I teach that now because I believe that we are entering a new story of humanity. We're at this thing that a lot of people are calling the fourth turning. These are epochs that seem to come up in certain rhythmic pulses. They change economy, they change governmental structures. And this time, I think it's happening more globally. And I believe this is the most opportune time to empower people to not pretend like they're low class and just 1 in 8 billion people, but that their story actually matters. That if there's something coming through their soul, that means somebody else needs to hear it. It's going to be useful for somebody else, even if it just empowers them to use their voice. So what I'm really trying to do, to sum all of what I just said up, is take this ancient, very powerful technology called story through the latest technology of filmmaking and empower filmmakers to not need other people's permission before they start, not need a huge platform backing them, but to just use the technologies like the internet, YouTube, technology that, $2,000, I made my first 3 films. You can do this if you believe in yourself. So that's why I made the soul of filmmaking, which is I want people to connect with that thing that they know they must say. And then I help them navigate all those objections that are telling them they're too small, they're insignificant, their story doesn't matter. And when they overcome that, I don't do it for them. I'm just kind of like a coach, helping them remember who they really are. When they overcome those objections, their story comes in full force, and it always has, I believe, the impact that it was meant to have. So what I'm really doing is I'm empowering people to become the authors of the next story of humanity in a very practical way. I'm teaching film.
Yeah, and that is a key component, because film is where philosophy can sing. It's where
Mm.
ideas get to shape into something that people can actually feel something through pretty directly. Because there are many forms of art that can move uh, our inner space. Music is a very powerful one. You're a musician as well, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Visual art is very much like that, but I feel like it has a little. If it's if it's an image, so it doesn't matter what kind of visual art, but if it's an image, it has a lot of possibility of not necessarily connecting to exactly what it was created from. But I do feel that
Mhm.
with film, you get a certain amount of time to really make a point. And if the point is to just create more exploration versus making a specific point, well, that's the thing that's going to be in there. But it gives you more of a handle on how far you can take people down the rabbit hole that you're really trying to take them through. And I think that film is really one of these most powerful tools to do that through, especially when it's coupled with a mind like yours that has your understanding in so many different kinds of worlds. From a practical standpoint, every single thing you've entered, you've been very successful in: music and filmmaking, and well, honestly, also in forming different alliances with different people. This is something that I think you talk about a lot less, but this is also a form of art, I believe. And just being able to stay neutral in the face of the demand of certainty, I think, is a skill and an art all by itself. Do you feel that as we're moving into this new era, something that you said, you kind of just said it very quickly, but you said that if something is coming through you in a powerful way, it must mean that, so to speak, whatever it is at the core of reality is speaking through you. So somebody needs to hear it. Can you say more about that? Because I think that depending on people's perception of the world, this might feel more metaphorical, and maybe you mean it metaphorical, but I took it to be more than a metaphor. So it seems to me that there is something at the core of reality that is speaking through us or singing through us. How do you
Mm.
discern what that thing is? Is it more about the vibe? Is it more about the way it flows through you? I always tend to say that it feels to me like if it creates dissonance in you while it's moving through you, it's probably not moving from the places that you want it to move from. And if it creates more harmony in you while you're expressing it, it seems to be belonging to the quote unquote right camp, or the thing that you want to bring more to the world. I know it sounds a little binary, but I do think that there's an emphasis that needs to be there. What are your thoughts on this? Do you feel that that needs to be less uh, outlined in this almost binary way in which I just did, or do you feel that that kind of is close to how you view that?
I think it's yes, and like the binary thing is not, it's not oversimplistic, because I think that story is powerful because it simulates reality. And to kind of stay on point with what you're saying, the binary part of it is like you either say yes to this potential lover or no, right? There is a middle ground, but it doesn't last very long. This kind of like capitulating and hold on, wait, maybe I'll call you back, that doesn't last very long. So you know so
So is it about the
how do you
commitment?
know?
Is it about the
Go ahead.
commitment? Is it about the commitment to it? Is that what gives you the glimmer of is it executing in the way that it's trying to?
Partly, because the thing is I think that, I really get down to the Tao here. It's not about any of these individual decisions that we're making. It's about the path that it sets us on. So even if we make a quote unquote wrong decision, there's still the possibility of moving in the same exact direction towards our goals. It's just hard sometimes we fool ourselves to know what our goals are. When we're meant to expand, sometimes we play small and we contract. So to answer your question, how do you know if it's the soul speaking through you or if it's something else? There is no one way to answer that, because I would say then, like, how do you truly know when you love somebody? Well, with my wife, I just knew it. Before that, I didn't believe that it was possible because I never knew it before. I'd never felt what I felt when I met her, and when I met her, I felt it, and then there was just no questioning it. I didn't ask any questions. I was just like, I'm following this, whatever this is, and I haven't questioned it since. So, you know, when I said when a story is pouring through people, because I just launched the film course at Soul of Film. I did a bunch of sales calls. What I noticed with every single one of them was, I was like, do you have a story that's coming to you? And they were like, you know what? As soon as I saw your video saying I'm empowering storytellers to step up and learn this craft of filmmaking, because it's one of the most powerful mediums to channel story through, a story just started coming up, and I've thought of it before, or I never thought of it before. But when it just posed the idea that you could be a filmmaker, your story matters, I just said those words to people. And what that did was that gave them permission to imagine for a second that they could be a filmmaker. When they imagined it for a second, they took off the shackles and something happened inside them, and they didn't question it. How would they prove that it was coming from the right place or not? They couldn't even prove it to themselves. They're just like, well, I just knew I had to do it. And then let's say they moved forward on it and they got a bunch of hate mail because of the film that they made or the story that they came out with. That doesn't mean that they made the wrong choice. That just means that was an impact that their story had on people. And perhaps it's not telling them that this isn't what you're cut out for, but it's saying, dude, you really struck a nerve. Now ask questions, go into that process, see what comes up for you, ask them questions like, why did this trigger you so much? Explore that territory, and the next step will present itself. So I think that when somebody knows, dude, I have this story, or I have this film idea, or a series, or a documentary idea, or stop motion, claymation, whatever, I have this story pouring through me. I need guidance. I want somebody to help me know that I'm not going crazy, for one, and I don't want to just waste time on this. I want to actually make sure I do it according to some kind of social norm or convention, i.e., screenwriting, filmmaking. I want to pour it into a craft. So I help them with that. And what I've found is, when I was making Kymatica, I don't remember barely any of that process. I sometimes say, I don't think that was me. I think it was something coming through me. But regardless of whether it was me or a higher self, or I was possessed for 6 months while I made it, it doesn't really matter. I just didn't say no to it. I didn't care to explain who it was, what it was that was pouring through me. I just did what I knew how to do with the tools available to me. And I poured a story into a format. So it went from the immaterial to the material. And that material had a signature to it that woke up hundreds of thousands of people. I still get people emailing me today, it changed my life, that film. And I don't even know how to take credit for it. So was that my soul? Was that God? Was that a demon? I don't know, but I believe what it was something deep within me that I call soul, saying, Ben, when you get out of your own way, I can speak more clearly. And I barely remember that process. I didn't question what I put in that film. Sure, I made a couple mistakes. I put the picture, I was talking about one god, Thoth, and I think I put Anubis's picture on it. I made mistakes for sure, but it still had a general impact on people that lasts to this day. So how do you know if it's the soul or not? Well, how do you know whether you're really in love or not? You just follow that thread.
That's a really good way of putting a decisive answer there. Actually, I want to bring, first of all, Ebony, I agree. Alignment comes to mind. The way of the Tao is something that I've been very much aligning myself with in the last couple of years. So this speaks very much to me. Something that I've just realized, that because I'm to some degree in the same industry, I never really considered what it's like to know nothing about it. But just by a vote, and we'll keep going, but you guys can put your comments here. To anybody who never considered, well, obviously to all the people that don't know how to make films and never even tried, never even thought about it, how many people here by a vote think that if all of a sudden the proposition came, they would say, you know what? Why don't I think of making like a short piece of something that I actually want to potentially share with the world? Because it's an incredible way of sharing what's inside of you with the world, with YouTube and all the channels that we have nowadays. So how many of you would think that this is something that you actually want to get into? And while people are answering, question for you, aside from obviously, we'll point to all this the ways to reach out to you if somebody wants to take your course, but as a little freebie, as a little advice, somebody who never thought about it before and all of a sudden wants to get into it, what do you think is the best point of contact with that first beginning? Is it to make something super short just to see what people's reaction to what you have to say is, maybe like a 1-2 minute segment that you create that had some arc in it, or there's some other beginner's advice that you usually put here?
Yeah, it's a multi-pronged answer. There is no strict formula, meaning you should start small, because I started big. I went straight for a feature film, and that was one of my, I started never having made a demo reel. 6 months later, I had my first film, and it got 10 million views before Google Videos took it down, and I had to re-upload it on YouTube once that got up and running. So I don't tell people that you should start here or you should start there. I start a conversation with them, and I inquire what's coming through you right now and in what format. Is it a podcast? Is it a long documentary? Is it a series? Is it a narrative piece? Is it a play? It could be anything. But what I tell people is, like, first, don't think of limitations. Don't think of your technical limitations or the limitations that you don't have an audience yet, or that you haven't broken into an industry. Nobody's going to take you seriously. Don't start with negations. Start with what's alive. I have this idea and I don't know, in what format. I don't know how to say it, but here's my thoughts. And what I'll do is I'll say, okay, here's the first thing that came up for me, but here's two other options and ideas that you may like. And those two other options is, one is more educational and the other is more artistic. So one gets more practical. I see if they're like, do you want to go into a more practical, lesson of what you want to get across? Or do you want people to have to guess? Is there mystery involved in it? Is it more artistic and interpretive? So I'll start with the first thing that's coming up for me. Like, well, that idea that you just shared to me sounds like a feature film. Do you want it to be more of this kind of a feature film, or do you want it to be more of this kind of a documentary film with narrative pieces in it? And I start gauging where their thread is at, and I make sure that they're not answering those questions with an attached objection, like, oh, I couldn't do a feature film, so let's just make a small documentary. Because I don't want people thinking from a sense of lack. I want them thinking from a sense of abundance. And then we can start bringing practicalities in step 2 or step 3. So that's usually a starting point for people. And what I would say is that, if an idea is coming through people, like a story is coming up for somebody, first thing to do is start writing. I think not typing, writing with your hand. It connects to more, cognitive and memory and motor centers in the brain. I think it's more of an active embodiment of what's coming through you. Start writing your ideas out. And what I do, if you were to, let's say, take the course, join the community that meets twice a week for 90 minutes, have one-on-one calls with me, all I do is I show you the template that just about every story follows. And that is beginning, middle, and end. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Act 1 is more about dopamine and adrenaline. You set a goal and you propel people. You don't hit the ground stagnant. You hit the ground running. And then in Act 2, you slow it down. You develop the characters. You develop their bond with the problem and why they're trying to solve it. You go through 3 plot points, which is, the character at first doesn't realize they can't bring their old self to solve the new problem. Second one is they finally start seeing that they can't use their old self to solve the new problem, but they don't know what to do about it. And the final Act 2 plot point is it becomes abundantly clear they cannot solve this new problem with the old self, and that propels them into Act 3 to the all is lost moment. Only in that broken state can they see the new self that they need to bring to solve the problem. That brings back adrenaline and dopamine that propels the audience towards the climax, where the one and only important transformation of the film happens. That's the climax. And then the resolution is showing the world a new normal after the major transformation. Almost every single story, all the way down to sometimes jokes, short stories, advertisements that have no dialogue whatsoever. It's just action lines. They all follow this. It's a setup, development, payoff. If you can understand story in that way, then you're going to start seeing, oh, well, there's my story. Now I just need to know what format to put it in. So first we start with what's the bigness of your story? What's alive for you? Don't bring me your objections. Bring me those dreams that, make you throw up in your mouth a little, like, dude, I could never think that big. No. Think that big now. And then we'll start whittling down what are the resources you actually need to bring it from the immaterial into an infrastructure, which is the template or the story arc that makes symbolic sense to the audience. And then you have to repeat that pattern. And what I tell people is, don't aim for perfection first, you aim for repetition. Repetition installs the pattern in your daily life of being a writer, being a filmmaker. If you write every day, the muse will find you, or your creativity will find you in those moments. If you're aiming for perfection right away, then you're going to do 12-hour days right away, burn yourself out, and you're going to say, oh, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. When in fact, you were supposed to be aiming for installing a pattern, not on your first go, making the most perfect film ever. So it's really about becoming a new human and allowing more moments of the day for creativity to flow through. And I think that's your soul speaking. So whether it's a podcast and it's every single day, or if it's a feature film, it's still about the little tiny steps that you take that bring you towards that big, fruition of a project.
I love it. Start from what's alive. That is such a great line and such a great advice. I think that you're right that the showing up is really the main story, because if you show up, all the necessary things that are trying to flow through you will become apparent, and they might not be as apparent every single day. But if you do show up every day or very often, a picture will emerge. And depending on how far apart are the moments where you show up, the more if you show up not very often, then it's more spread out. It's the resolution is not very high. But if you show up every day, it's very fresh on your mind and on your state of being. So you know that yesterday you had this problem, and today now that you have more energy, you're gonna fix it. Versus if you wait a week,
Right.
now you still have to kind of remember what you were doing. You go back, and now you go back to square one, sometimes to square -2, right? And that is something that I think. So when I started these lives, one of the attempts was honestly to just kind of understand what my audience wants actually, versus you work on a piece, you make a video, whatever, you put it out, it either does well or does less well, but you don't really have that good of a grasp of what worked and why. But when you do it every day, you gain a much deeper understanding of what is it that is actually, what kind of what are you bringing in that means something to other people. And I mean, obviously the part of the grind of showing up every day for anything is that you're not going to perform the best every day. People who've been showing up for this channel for a long time would know that sometimes, I'm tired, I'm cranky. In the beginning, I would just showing up literally every single day, no matter what. Like, even if it was 4 a.m. and I just now finished with my day, well, guess what? I'm showing up for 15 minutes or whatever. And eventually, when I saw that I can show up, it was more and more of like, oh, to show myself that I can show up. I realized that, okay, I can relax there, because I know I can show up every day if I really want to. But if I feel like I'm okay, discernment, right? If I feel like I'm too on edge, I'm not gonna show up, because I'm not doing anyone. That's not a service. I'm just like sitting there and like I don't really have any patience for anything. And but through that, I'm also learning how to be better at what I do, which is talk to people on a daily basis, hold interest, understanding what people are actually trying to say, making sure that I'm entertaining different points of view, despite my mood in that at the time. And I feel that every craft that anybody's going to try and tackle will have this element where if you show up every day, you're going to learn something about it and about yourself a lot more if you're going to show up only every once in a while. And if you're true to what you're trying to do, there's no question that the right answers will come. It's just a matter of time. They will come. The amount of information that is available out there, both in courses like your own, and then beyond that, like what if people want to sharpen their tools, you know, like understanding how to work these softwares, like much deeper, like literally all the information is out there. It's just, are you going to show up? That's really the only
Right.
question. Now,
Yeah, can I just say one thing
absolutely, of
on that
course.
real quick,
Yeah,
because I love the way you put that together. You know, so if it's a process that you're doing in private, showing up every day is going to help you learn about you, your process, and your inner objections in your mind and how to overcome them. The more you do it, like same thing with the gym, you know, I don't feel like going today, I'm a little tired, but if you do it, even if you go light, you showed yourself that you're the boss, not your whims, not your daily emotions and your ups and downs. The roller coaster doesn't decide. You're the one with the agency. And and then it's also good to be able to, like, you know what, I deserve a day off. And yes, with my agency, I declare this is my day off. But when you start doing it not in private life and to an audience, like what you're doing, what you're also doing, which is what I didn't do at first, I launched Esoteric Agenda, and then 7 months later came out Chymatica, and then 2 years later came out Ungrip, then 5 or 6 years later came out Psychedelica. That wasn't enough repetitions to really fully know my audience. So what happened was that's not also enough repetition for them to remember, oh yeah, remember Ben? Because I kept going away for these long periods. So what you're doing is you're not just establishing an audience, you're establishing more of a tribe that accepts you even when you're cranky or even when you slip up or even on those down days. You're like, whatever, I showed up today anyway. You know, I'm kind of sick, but you know, my voice is kind of froggy, but I'm going to do it anyway. You're establishing a kind of rapport and trust that, well, he's here every day and I can trust that I kind of want to be in that space. I don't care if he doesn't say the right things. The reason why people listen to the same podcast host every single day isn't always because they're being mind blown in the same way every single day. It's because that host curates an environment that I want to be in. So Tim Pool, he's on live at the same time 5 nights a week. That's how he had, I think it was 500,000 live followers when he was covering the election, and Daily Wire, which has a lot more money and a lot of people. And why is that? Because Daily Wire doesn't do live shows at 5 o'clock every single evening. Tim Pool does. What did that do? It didn't just create a big audience. It made people feel like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. What do I do? Oh, well, I could sit there and listen to political commentary passively because I don't mind being in that space. And then the more the audience does that, then they're repeating that pattern. And now they're like, well, what do I do if Tim Pool's not on tonight? That sucks. There's a guest host. You know what I mean? They expect you, whether or not you're having the best day or not, they just love the space that you curate. So there's a thing in repetition that also allows for people to feel that you're more stable and safe, and they'll keep coming back to be in that environment, regardless of whether it's a good day for them or not. So, you know, I think it's powerful what you're doing, daily broadcasts.
I appreciate you, brother. Yeah. No, but I guess what I was more, there's always the similarities there, right? So with filmmaking, obviously, it's going to be a little bit different because you're creating something and then you're presenting that something. And I don't necessarily think that it has to be across the board this way, that you have to constantly listen to what people say, you know, on a daily. Yeah, with the daily lives, obviously, yes. But I do think that, especially when we're talking about film, but the showing up every day, like you said, you will still learn a lot more about your process, about how you do things, about your psychology and execution, depending on how you feel that day. Like maybe, you know, today you just don't feel inspired. What kind of things inspire you? Is there a particular music? Is there a particular shows that just put you in the zone, right? And you find these tools. That's when I used to edit a lot more. That was one of my biggest things, where Sometimes I would have the process that would like to just lay out the story, but sometimes I feel like the story is not really telling itself to me. So then I would just go and find pieces of music that I, excuse me, really like, and then, oh, look at that, the story all of a sudden flows from the music, and I'm like, oh, interesting.
Mm.
If the story going to flow differently if I play this other music? Oh, interesting, it does. Okay, is there a middle ground there? Where's the music and where's what I want to put in there? What is trying to actually do? So all of these little flavors of what's happening inside of you are being investigated on a if you do it on a daily basis, you become a master of your craft very, very quickly. To bring it to your course, in the course, do you teach literally everything from A to Z, including the tools, including the storytelling part of it, ideation, all of that stuff?
So, to an extent, what I wanted to do was I really wanted to drill story for people and to understand how story, you need to understand your story and how it fits a structure in development of the idea. That's where you literally bring it from out of your mind onto a dry erase board when you're storyboarding, onto a piece of paper, onto a living document. That's development. And then you prepare, that's your preparation to go into production, where you're literally filming, you're capturing the audio, you're capturing what you need. And then it teaches going into post production and bringing that story to the screen. And it doesn't teach every nuance of editing. It doesn't teach all the different things on Adobe Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, because you can find all that stuff on YouTube. So I don't waste people's time. I give a very top level but condensed distillation of my wisdom in the craft of filmmaking to accelerate people to the point where I'm at quicker than it took me. So I mainly drill story. Like, how do you bring your story that's coming through you through development, production, post-production, and also keep it alive in the teaser, the trailer, the launch strategy, the thumbnails, things along those lines. So it's capturing that essence, but every core or every class within the course is 8 to 10 minutes maximum. So I don't go on at length. I really distill it down into bite-sized wisdom. And then there's homework. And that homework is literally hands-on training. Start drafting your idea, start producing your idea, start post-producing your idea, because I don't think people should wait until they're done with the course before they start. You need to start when the information is fresh, because that's how you're going to embody what you've learned, by actually doing it. So I try to make that as simple as possible. That's just the course. Then there's the community. And twice a week, Monday at 3 p.m. Central Time and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, to accommodate people from New Zealand, all over the world, I teach a 90-minute class where we're drilling writing, how to make a log line, which is a one-sentence distillation of your entire story, how to put that into a synopsis, how to, write out what the impact you want to have on the audience, what they should feel, what's their take home, all the way to anyone has a question that the course didn't answer, bring it to class. The classes are small enough, because I broke them up into pieces. They're small enough to where I can answer individual questions. And it's very interactive. It's not just me talking the entire time. And then there's one-on-one calls, because even the class isn't enough. There's some people where it's like, Ben, I need like 90 minutes with you alone to see where I'm stuck and see what I do next. And my whole point of it is like, listen, I'm not going to give you 30 minutes to write this idea. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to write your synopsis. And that's forcing your mind to do what all storytellers have to learn to do. Kill your darlings, cut out the fluff, get to the point, move the story forward. Only say the things that are actually pushing the story forward towards the transformation. So the whole point is the course is there to teach general stuff. If you want to know how to add contrast or, color grade, you can find that on YouTube, and I suggest you do. But I do teach AI, because these are the tools that are enabling individuals to do everything from scoring your film to color grading your film to cropping out backgrounds and adding in futuristic ones, to anything that you can imagine. AI is really enabling individuals to become a one-man band, making super powerful films. and in no time. And so what I'm doing is I'm adding the guidance to really make sure, like, listen, you can step into the industry if you want, but I want you to follow that thread that I believe is your soul, telling you what's most important and how to embody your principles and values in a story that has a symbolic structure easy enough for the average audience to understand. So, what I'm really teaching is communication of something very nuanced and intangible, like messages coming through your soul, and distill it through a practical craft called filmmaking. So, the most amount of eyeballs can see it. Because back in the day, to get your story across, you might have had to go to town square and stand on a soapbox and hope 50 people showed up and could hear you. Now, there's technology that for $2,000 you can make a feature film and 50 million people could see it because of the internet and YouTube, and the options are endless. So it's mind-boggling to people who don't realize how simple it actually is. I'm just there to simplify. No, you as an individual can make a feature film in 6 months that can reach 50 million people, because me, without knowing jack shit in 2008, made a 2-hour film that reached 10 million people in a year. And they said to me that it transformed their way of seeing reality. So if I could do that, not really knowing what I was doing, if I can teach other people to overcome their inner objections, they could do it. And, so that's a quick distillation of what the course is, what the community is. And I guess just to throw it in there, the added benefit is all of my contacts, from the influencers to Gaia, ESPN, all these platforms that I've worked with, all those channels are now open to you. So if you want to invest in yourself, you can instantly get a return on your investment if you want to go work for somebody and hone your editing craft or your narration or your writing under the tutelage of, Aubrey Marcus, Tim Pool, you name it. So I'm trying to basically make it easy and less objectionable for people who feel like they have a story inside them. I'm taking away the reasons for them to say, no, I couldn't. It can't be me. It's too big for me. And I'm just trying to streamline people into, no, you can. I've made it simple for you, and I'll literally be there. You're not going to be alone with a slideshow and a pre-recorded voice and no hand-holding. I'm here to hand-hold you the entire way. At least 6 months in the class, and I guarantee you will have a finished product of at least a script or a pilot or something. And that's with one-on-one calls, 90-minute classes twice a week, and a course that I think covers all the bases.
Where can people find all of this?
You go to souloffilm.com. Again, that's SOULOFFILM, souloffilm.com. And what you do is you sign up and you book a call with me. So once you sign up, I'll reach out to you. I'll give you my Calendly link. You can book a call with me, because I don't want to overbook this. I don't want too many people in class. I want the right fit. I want people who aren't just trying to compete in the industry. I want people who know that they need to be one of the authors of the next story of humanity. So we get on a one-on-one call. If it's a fit, I show you how to sign up. I, walk you through that process, and instantly you hop in class and we start working on your vision.
That's incredible. I'm just put it in every place where people can find you, souloffilm.com. You guys can also find Ben's channel as well on YouTube. It's just Ben Joseph Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, perfect. And you guys can also check out my conversation with Ben on my YouTube channel. If you're not on YouTube right now, it's Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts. If you scroll down, you'll find Ben Joseph Stewart, or you can just search Ben Joseph Stewart, Dango Thoughts. Brother, you're an absolute pleasure, and it's always such a blast to talk to you. I know you've been at it. It's 4 now, right? It's 4 kids now?
4 kids. Yeah, dude. Yeah, they're great, man.
I know we're about to have 1, so I'm in awe. And I I've been to your home a few times. I met your lovely wife, and you guys are just an incredible couple, and you're running a really great household. Something to truly take example from. The fact that you're doing all this and raising 4 kids, and involved in so many things that you do aside from the Academy, man. I'm truly I'm blown away every time by watching you go, and it's really inspirational. So again, everybody, soulofilm.com. I put the links right here, and it's on the screen as well. Sign up if you want, and yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see if what this brings. What do you have? Do you have anything in store? I know you were working on a new DMT Quest film. Is this something you can give us any information about? Like, is this in the pipeline or?
Yeah, so I've already been working on it with John Chavez. And, before I forget, I just want to say that anyone listening here that does want to sign up, um, if you tell me that you came through this channel through Danny Goler, I'll give you a 15% discount. And, that way a kickback can go to Danny for his hard work and what he's doing. But then as far as the film DMT Quest 2, there was a little hiccup, meaning, the peer review, there's some amazing information of, in DMT Quest 1, we found out that the brain is continuously making comparable levels of DMT in the brain as there is serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, which is mind-boggling. It's the discoveries now that have come out, that are going to come out in DMT Quest 2, are even more mind-boggling than that. And I wish I could say what it is, but it's going to be a good surprise when the film comes out. We're waiting on a couple interviews, and the reason why we're waiting is because it takes a long time to peer review, and that's one thing that John Chavez is really trying to transform, also through a crypto channel, Research Coin, is a way to allow for not just crowdfunding of science, but also an accelerated way to get to peer review so science can expedite itself. There may be some dangers in that, but I also think it's also just getting rid of needless hiccups in the process. So DMT Quest 2 is going to be even better when it comes to like the quality and the editing and stuff like that. And Wim Hof is going to be in it again. Rodrigo Montenegro did some studies in France with him, or not just with him, but with his students. Really incredible stuff. I wish I could give you more information, but we do have Adam Tapp in there, who had a near-death experience and likens that to a DMT experience. So we're kind of showing how we have this incredible endogenous chemical in our brains. We also have 5-MeO in our brain, but we kind of stick with the NN DMT studies. It's just incredible that we have this compound in our brain and it's being produced continuously, which stands to reason that it has to do with the way we perceive reality in some way. So that's one film that I'm working on. There's a couple other ones. There's potential of making a film with Maha. I talked with them and they were like, what would you do if you did a film with us? And I would say, well, I would instantly separate Maha from politics. And I would just start talking about what is health, comes from the root word holos, which is to be whole. And what does it mean to make America great? Not to make it America centric, but like I say that in the terms of, it's not just making Americans great, it's making America, or not great, I'm sorry, healthy, making Americans healthy, or America healthy. So we talk about soil. Let's talk about that our environment is the extension of self. And if the environment isn't healthy, it would be hard for us to be healthy. Not impossible, but hard. So there's potentially a Maha film. And, there's a few other ones that are coming up that I'm super excited about that might have Stewart Hameroff in the mix, who has this really interesting idea about microtubules in the neurons having a connection with where consciousness arises from. So there's a lot of really cool things that are to come, but I can't say it until the film is really, about to come out, what the films are about. So
Yeah, well,
you guys have to, I think later on this year, DMT Quest 2 will come out.
Woohoo! And our film is also, they're completely different films, kind of films, by the way. So we're not necessarily competing for the kind of film that we're in the genre of. So I will be very happy to promote your film as well. We special shout out to John Chavez. He's actually the biggest investor in our film as well. From the DMT Quest, and he connected us to Stuart Hemmeroff. We did some brain study scans with him in San Francisco as part of what we're shooting for the film. I then later shot some stuff personally. I was about 8 hours in the 5-MeO DMT state, and not consecutively, but like on and off. But like most of the time was in the space, and we were doing brain scans with a DDG device that Stuart is measuring the microtubules with. With Sterling, who is his right hand guy, he's incredible. They're actually presenting. Well, not anymore. I think they were today. They were presenting my brainwaves in a conference while I was on that journey. And there were some very interesting things there. Yeah, so there's some, and I think even Sterling said there was some very interesting thing happening while I was looking at the laser versus not looking at the laser. But we'll see. We'll have to kind of like analyze this. So huge shout out to John Chavez. The study that you were mentioning from DMT Quest 1, I believe that was John Dean's study, right? Was it with rats or with mice? I always forget.
Yeah, it was with mice. And yes, it was John Dean, and Nick Glynos was also a part of that. And Nick Glynos is the one who made the really groundbreaking discovery that'll be in DMT Quest 2.
Amazing. Okay, yeah. So you're doing incredible work, Ben. I'm honored to call you a friend and a brother in arm, and we're gonna be doing some great things, inspiring some great minds to do great things themselves as well. So I'm can't wait to bring more of this to light. And the more you move, the more you evolve with everything you're doing. You're always welcome to come back and chat a little bit more. People really enjoyed your voice and your everything you have to say. So both the listeners and myself, we really appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much. And dude, when your film comes out, I will promote the fuck out of it. So like let's celebrate with that, man. I'm super excited to see it.
Same here, brother. Well, I will let you go back to your family. And again, thank you so much for allowing us to enjoy your wisdom, brother.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to the audience. Really excited to connect with new people. So even outside of the film thing, if any of you want to connect for any reason, ben@benjosephstewart.com. You can send me an email. Danny, it's been a pleasure. I can hear my kids busting down the door, so I'll let you go.
See you, brother. Have a good night.
Peace.
Bye. Awesome. Yeah. So also, I know about the clicking. Apologies. It all of a sudden started happening. As we were talking, I immediately made an appointment for Apple because this is a brand new laptop. It should not be happening. It's weird. So they should fix whatever this is. But hopefully you guys can hear me okay now. Yeah, Ben really is incredible. And he is one of these like very wholesome people that really cares about the right things. He's a very hard worker, and he has a lot of experience in that industry. So if you guys want to learn storytelling for film from the best, I definitely recommend. I would not be bringing anybody on this show that I don't fully believe in supporting their abilities to contribute something good for other humans. So if you guys are interested, reach out, solofilm.com. Highly recommend it. I don't think we're going to have too much time today for diving into topics. I see there's a lot of comments. It's getting a little late. I'm trying to get my days over a little earlier so I don't go into lack of sleep. But tomorrow, as I promised, we will probably have Dresco. Is that the handle, right? Talking about a little bit more about the differences in meditation and things like this. And I do want to encourage anybody who has a good topic to go back and forth on. It's not necessarily a debate, but maybe people have a different point of view of than myself or anything that is being talked about. We can drill down particular subjects in a way that is respectful, loving, and something that actually gets us further ahead in our understanding. So, yeah, Ben is an incredible speaker. So that being said, if anybody has one of these subjects, please come in and I will put you on Discord or on TikTok and we can go at it. Please make sure that it's well formulated and it's not one of these, well, that's what I think and that's it, or it's very important that we have merit behind what we're saying. Okay, and please join our Discord. It is the link. You can find it in the link tree. Awesome, Rose. I'm glad that you joined. Evil Icon as well. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Again, Discord is in the link tree in the description on TikTok and on YouTube. You can find it in my links on the main page on YouTube. If you want to follow me across other platforms, it will be Danny Goller on TikTok and on Instagram. It will be Goller Danny on X. It'll be LaserX83 on Twitch and Dango Thoughts on YouTube. DANGO Thoughts on YouTube. You can join the membership program if you want. That will help the project and will include early access to all my content, private things from my life that will live nowhere else but on YouTube members. It includes weekly lives for members only, aside from the daily lives that include much deeper dives into all kinds of fun topics, philosophical, scientific, mathematical. We dive into all kinds of really fun things and aliens, whatever it comes. Give more attention to people. If you sign up from the second tier and up to the YouTube members, you will get access also to our Zoom calls, monthly Zoom calls with the members from the second tier and up. One is coming up this Friday. So if you sign up second tier, make sure you email me if you do that to lasersimulationx@gmail.com, lasersimulationx@gmail.com, so I know that you need an invite. Please email it to me. That being said, and final thing, of course, codeofreality.com, codeofreality.com, that has our merch and has the lasers and has a lot of updates that are coming, not yet, but coming about the project. That's our main address for all that stuff. That's it. I really, again, Ben's website, if you're interested, is souloffilm.com, SOULOFFILM.com. And that's it. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate the community. Thank you so much for our wonderful moderators, Ebony and Chris and Guru and Jessica. Again, I don't know if Jessica is a moderator yet or still, but appreciate you. I always love that you're here. Yoni, thank you for all the regulars. We really appreciate you for always being here and always making this channel what it is. Evil Icon, Rose, really appreciate you. And thank you so much for the likes and the gifts and everything else. Thank you for the love, guys. See you tomorrow. Peace and love. Tomorrow probably not going to have any clicks. Ciao. Have a good night, guys.